If I could go back in time and talk to myself when I was 30 years old, here's what I'd say. You're not broken, you're not lazy, and you're not lost. You've just been taught your entire life to ignore that inner voice, the one that knows exactly who you are. If that sounds like some advice that you needed to hear, stick around. I'll show you exactly how to hear that inner voice again. For most of my life, I did everything I could to avoid facing myself. I struggled with depression and anxiety, and I repressed really all of my feelings, even the good ones like joy and peace. Then one day, my wife said something to me, and it was something that she had said to me many times before in our relationship, but on this day, it really clicked with me. It's something that really resonated with me. And what she said was basically, you're hardwired for misery. And that really hit me, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. It really made me think about my childhood. And I thought a lot about how when I was young, when I was a kid, like 6, 7, 8 years old, I would go to like a birthday party or some social gathering, and usually something would happen to upset me or set me off, or someone may have been a little unkind, or just something wasn't right that day. And instead of shaking it off, I would often just sort of go and sit in a corner and watch the party or whatever's going on ensue. And people would try to include me and kind of come over and check on me and things like that, but I would just completely shut down and isolate myself. And then as the party was basically ending, I would decide that I felt okay about joining in and having fun. And of course, always it would be way too late, and things would just wrap up and that was it. And that's a pattern of behavior that followed me well into my adulthood, all the way up into my 40s, really. It always felt like joy and happiness and really life was happening on the other side of this pane of glass. Like I was just meant to be this observer and never really be part of, well, life. By the time I was 30 years old, ignoring my intuition was, well, it was a lifestyle, really. I doubted every decision I made, from big life choices like moving across country and selling everything we owned to the simplest thing like where to get lunch that day. I would just agonize and overthink everything I did. And ultimately, no matter what I chose or what the results were, I was never really happy with it. And because I didn't trust myself, I made some pretty bad decisions. Like when we decided to sell everything we owned, buy an RV, and move all the way from Massachusetts to Portland, Oregon. This was a plan that we hastily concocted in just a matter of a few weeks. I had no job lined up, no real place to live other than the RV, and really just one friend out there. But we had convinced ourselves that that was going to make us happy, that it was just where we were living that was the problem. Well, sure enough, the RV broke down about every other day on the road, and we never made it to Portland. We got about as far as Colorado, where we were forced to settle down because winter was coming. And to this day, we still live there. But I learned a very important truth. A change of scenery can't fix that pattern that you're carrying around. Flash forward 10 years. I just finished school. I had all of my certifications, and I was out in the world trying to work as an automotive technician, which is what I went back to school to study. And yet, despite being very good at it and getting hired into some very high paying jobs, I just couldn't cut it. I struggled greatly with what I now know is anxiety. I was losing time and having a lot of worry and just couldn't get the job done in an efficient and quick manner. So I remember being at my third job. It was my second week there. It's my third job in just as many months. And I was trying to just put a bolt in the car that I was working on. And there I was, my hands were just trembling, shaking so hard that I couldn't even line up the bolt. I knew right then and there that I just couldn't do this anymore. So I went home early that day, and a few days later, I quit that job. And that's really when my old self and my old life completely collapsed. After that, I was desperate for answers. I had been taking an antidepressant while I was in school, and it had helped a bit with some of my anxiety. But what I needed was a lot more than medication. I really needed transformation. And one day, as I was searching the internet and going down all of these sort of various rabbit holes on how to deal with this, I came upon a video talking about the tarot and how the major arcana in tarot really symbolizes the various stages and transformations that we go through in a lifetime. I thought maybe the tarot can give me the answers I need. The truth is, tarot isn't something that I had just discovered that day. It's actually something I rediscovered. Because as a teenager, as a young man, I had taken a very deep interest in tarot, the occult, new age, and mystical ideas, all these esoteric things. I had a deep fascination for all of this stuff when I was young. So, like so many of us, as I grew up, I abandoned a lot of these interests and passions for more practical things in life. And I always thought that when I was an old man and retired, I would kind of get back to studying and practicing these things, just like many people sort of had more into religion and spirituality in the later phases of their life. So 20 years of my adult life went by, and I just got stuck and trapped in repeating all these same patterns of behavior, essentially making all the same mistakes over and over again, and blaming everything else in my life external to me and never really looking at myself. So I ordered a Rider-Waite tarot deck from Amazon. It's the most common and basic tarot deck you can buy. It's the most well-known one. It's the same one I used to use when I was younger. In fact, I still have it right here to this day. I still use it. Here it is. It's this deck, this exact deck. I got the deck and unwrapped it, shuffled it probably 1,000 times, it felt like. And I pulled one card. And that was my plan. I was just going to start pulling one card a day, try to get some answers as to what was going on with me. The first card I pulled was strength. Not physical strength, not brute force, but the gentle, compassionate strength that comes from your heart. And for the first time in my life, the card wasn't just interesting. It was personal. And it really spoke about me, to me, and where I needed to look to sort myself out. When I did this, I completely broke open. I started crying and shaking and had all of this emotional release, things that I hadn't really allowed myself to feel or explore for decades, if not my entire life. I could feel these emotions. I could feel anger and sadness without being angry and sad. And that is a powerful and transformative distinction that I had never experienced before. I was always afraid of feeling these things because I was afraid that they would turn me into, well, a monster, I guess, something really awful, especially things like anger. And I was always afraid that if I allowed myself to feel my anger, that I would possibly do something harmful to myself or others, even though I'd never done anything like that my entire life. Tarot gave me something that my rational mind never could. It gave me a doorway to my intuition. It allowed me to hear that inner voice again. So let's talk about intuition for a moment. You weren't disconnected from it when you were born. In fact, we're all born very deeply connected to our intuition. When we're babies and we're even young children, we haven't fully developed our minds, and we don't have a lot of real rational thought. We simply have that deeper voice guiding us. When we need something, we cry, we point, we run around, we play, whatever it is, it just happens. So how do we become so disconnected? Well, the truth is we are all taught to ignore ourselves. We are all taught to fit in, to keep to ourselves and go along with the program. So really, for our entire lives, we are conditioned to ignore our emotions, silence what our body tells us, override our most powerful and basic instincts, and to prioritize approval of others and seek validation in the external. And here's the biggest lie that society teaches us, that your intuition is irrational. The truth is your intuition is the greatest form of wisdom you can have. Our inner voice doesn't disappear. We really just get good at drowning it out. Now, I'd like to help you reconnect with your intuition. I'm going to walk you through the exact same exercise that I performed that gave me such a great breakthrough in this, like I just described. And the cool thing is, you don't need to have a tarot deck or anything like that. You might want to get a sheet of paper and something to write with, and find somewhere a bit quiet and calm to be in for a few minutes. And if you need to pause the video and do that, go ahead right now. Okay. Now that you're in a comfortable place and you've got something to write with, I'd like you to take a moment, take a few really deep breaths, breathe fully into your body, hold it, and let it go. And again. And one more time. And now I want you to hold the question in your mind. What does my past self need to know? And as you're thinking of that, I'm going to pop a card up on the screen. When it pops up, I want you to look at it and notice the first thing that you think and feel. Okay, are you ready? Here's your card. Now, don't worry too much about the name on the card or any of its symbols. I just want you to focus on the first things that pop into your mind, the first things that you feel in your body and in your heart. And write those down right now. That right there, that reaction, that is your intuition. That is that inner voice that has guidance and wisdom for you whenever you ask for it. Now take a moment and reflect. How do these feelings and thoughts relate to your younger self? What is something that maybe you wish you had known when you were younger that would have helped you out then and would have changed your life now? Take some time and write that down, or if you feel so inspired, please leave me a comment, or you can even contact me privately and let me know. I'd love to hear from everyone. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. That helps get the word out and helps keep my work going.